The new season is finally coming in, as in pre-season is ending, and I feel I can finally make up my mind on this new jungle. I was waiting for all the potential changes to come in, and I figured the Smite change is going to be the final thing they make. Honestly, the new jungle is neither great or bad. It feels pretty much the same as the previous jungles really, with a few things that were added that give it this sort of illusion that has changed a lot. With what Riot has settled on, it's more like they decided just to give Smite a slow on champions, a mini oracle on raids, which are now chickens, warp the values of Dragon and Baron, and threw out some crabs on the river. What I mean by that is that they did change the jungle, but that the changes to the jungle brought no real variety to the game. It's not to say that Riot didn't try to bring variety though. Riot cannot expect simple changes in the game to promote variety without changing the allies and make it impossible, which are the champions that are so strong they overshadow everyone else, or too flawed that they are pretty much pointless to pick. At first, we were all pretty damn surprised at how severe the sustain changes were and how poor most every jungler's first clears were. Riot lightly addressed this and helped a tad, but in the end, most of the players just figured out safer paths and builds to ignore the silliness of the first clears. After the first clears, no junglers really have sustain issues, at least ones that cripple them, especially with Ranger's Trailblazer. This has also been amplified tenfold by allowing players to switch between jungler and machete upgrades at will, so now most junglers can start off with the sustain of Ranger's Trailblazer and then trade it in for a saber or a Stalker's Blade. Even so, strong leeches make most sorts of planning pointless and the whole weak first clear thing a non-factor except for a few champions. The majority of the junglers stayed pretty much the same in terms of effectiveness. I have said this several times during a few of my videos this preseason, and I stand by it still. Most junglers were taking down a few steps in strength, a few more than others, while a few not at all. But since most experience about an equal drop, this results in the power hierarchy of junglers pretty much staying the same with a few exceptions. We have a few of the same junglers that are dominating like Jarvan, Kha'Zix, and Lee Sin, while a few junglers who lost a little to no power in comparison to others have made a resurgence, at least in solo queues such as Fiddlesticks and Pantheon. You can also count the blatantly broken ones like Rek'Sai. Of course though, that means the tank junglers were pretty much left in the same rut they have always been. Even though Riot keeps trying to promote diversity and bring back tank junglers, it will never happen without a rehaul of most champions. Bruisers and assassins constantly edge out tanks in terms of spotlight simply because of killing power and action power. Damage is king in this game, more so than utility. Who cares if Nautilus can lock down a target for 4 to 6 seconds if he cannot kill them alone during that time frame? Why not just instantly burst them down as Kha'Zix and not bother with the whole lockdown process? While a powerful ultimate initiation like Malphite can still win games, a smart team will avoid situations where Malphite gets a full value ultimate, and some compositions can sometimes just shrug it off. Most of the tanks we have seen in competitive alongside bruisers were only during times where they had a lot of damage to their kits, and were pretty damn overpowered as a result. Zac is a good example, as he would annihilate entire teams during release and was used in both jungle and top lane. Zac's damage was mega nerfed and he has struggled to see use as of late. I still personally enjoy him though. Most of the pure tanks I see used now are usually stuffed into a lane and allowed to farm so they can get some damage through sheer itemization and levels, but other than that I see very few jungle tanks. Changing the jungle will likely never make the jungle tanks suddenly viable. They either need to be universally buffed or have all the bruisers nerfed. This is the problem though. It is dangerous to buff tanks because giving champions with strong utility more power can explode into horrific balance problems. Right now bruisers excel because they can act like tanks by performing pseudo initiations, pseudo bodyguard work, and so on and so forth, while still providing damage and murdering power. Tanks do that 1,000 times better, but lack the damage and killing potential. If all of a sudden you make tanks have comparable damage to bruisers, then bruisers could become useless and tanks insanely overpowered. You cannot have a giant anchor god who can lock down your entire team and pick out your carry and kill them before your eyes within the time span it takes you to come out of the crowd control. Though, to be honest, there is a slew of other factors keeping tank junglers down, but they vary a little too much to go into detail of each one. Pretty much all tank junglers have a poor early game in comparison to bruisers, which can only be rectified by nerfing the jungle, which we know will not happen anytime soon. Some tank junglers used to be strong tankers, but the spike in survivability has made it so much harder for them to actually obtain kills, especially since most of them lack killing power pre-6 or even throughout the game. Everyone having gap closers or escape mechanisms is a pain in the ass, fast for them. Most pure junglers just get utterly outpaced by bruisers in terms of farming and covering the map. They cannot clear as fast, sustain those clears, travel through the map as effectively, or respond to ganks or counter ganks as effectively. As sad as it is to say, the game has sort of evolved to the point where the notion of a pure tank jungler might just be obsolete. I know I ranted about tanks a little too much, but I think this was honestly the biggest thing for a lot of people. They really wanted diversity to come to the jungle, but it resulted in pretty much the same thing. It is like they just took the previous jungle, slapped on a bunch of things, and gave it back to us. I'm not saying this is a bad thing really, I'm totally okay with a new jungle at this point. Riot definitely wanted to make the game much more spectator friendly, and they have sort of succeeded in that. Dragon no longer causes an immediate snowball effect, or at least a drastic one, but slowly builds in the super strong advantage, so players are forced to meet up and contest it with much more commitment. The changes to the jungle and the addition of the crab have slowed down plenty of junglers and kept them from completely crushing opponents super early, or at least without risk. The new Baron buff is very powerful and allows a team to begin a push and massacre and close out games. Riot probably just does not want the games to end quickly because lanes got stomped, but also doesn't want the games to last forever because of a lack of pushing power. Of course, this matters more in competitive. In the chaos of solo queue, it doesn't really matter. The ranked experience is a shadow of the competitive experience. Any random team composition will still likely work out in solo queue. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that none of this really affected things aside from giving players more things to mess around with. Your favorite and best jungler is still a viable choice. The jungler hierarchy has barely changed. Get a leash for your first clear and then everything will feel like it was before. The new season starts soon, but don't panic. Just pick your favorite and best champion and have at it. Soon I'll be releasing more educational videos like I used to do, like one on sustained builds and paths for tanks, and videos specific to a few champions that are not team battles, sort of like a my build plus my thoughts on X champion without all the fluff commentary. So keep your eye on your sub box, follow me on social medias in the description below, and give this video a like if you enjoyed it.